Want to shop Walmart Black Friday deals first? Walmart Plus members get early access to our hottest deals. Join now and get 50% off a 1-year annual membership. Shop Black Friday deals first with Walmart Plus. See terms at walmartplus.com.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Ithan struggles with purpose while the arrival of Pollux and Baxian sends Hunt into a tailspin. Though Bryce comes to assist with his release after Hunt and Pollux trade blows, she begs Hunt to not make the same mistake again in front of Celestina. Their evening is disrupted by Tharion, whose investigation has unearthed a connection between Sofie, Renast, and Danika, Fendyr, and reveals his search for Emile. Despite Hunt's warnings, Bryce is eager to find Emile and keep the boy safe, and begins her own line of questioning about Danika's connection to Ophion and the rebel cause.
The views expressed by the hosts are entirely their own and in no way represent the thoughts or intentions of the original author.
This podcast is a discussion, shared to spark thought and conversation on the characters and themes of this novel.
The interpretations presented in this podcast are just a few of many possibilities. Listeners are encouraged to read along and share their own analysis of the text.
Though the hosts speak mostly within the constraints of this book, series and extended universe spoilers may be discussed with or without warning.
Explicit language, as well as themes of sex, violence, abuse, depression, self-harm, and death will recur throughout this podcast. Listener discretion is advised.
If you are enjoying the podcast, check out our Patreon for more exclusive content. You can find us at patreon.com/Book Talk for Book Talk.
Welcome to Book Talk for Book Talk, a podcast where we deep dive into the writing of your favorite novels.
This season, we are exploring Sarah J. Maas's second installment in the Crescent City series.
This is Jac.
And I'm Amy.
This is part 1 of this week's episode, where we're discussing chapters 10 through 13 in A House of Sky and Breath.
The question we're going to ask ourselves this week is, what is Bryce prioritizing in pursuit of Emile and information about Danika and Sofie's interactions? And how does that influence her views of her relationship with Hunt?
The theme we're going to see in this section is food is power. We start chapter 10 kind of almost like a 5 minutes prior to the end of the first of the chapter right before.
Yeah.
So we start chapter 10 right as Pollux and Baxian enter the office, and we meet Baxian, and already, as when I read it, I forgot who he was, and I was like, oh damn, he's Danika's mate, he's actually a good guy, and I just want to lend him a hand. Do you get what I'm saying? Because he bites Rune's hand.
Poor Rune.
It's just the funniest scene. Oh boy. Anyway, he is described as having, quote, jet black wings, shimmered faintly like a crow's feather. And I just had to think about what do crows represent? And they're often depicted as being signs of change, intuition, and transformation, which reminds me a lot of Baxian's own backstory.
Let's also remember that maybe traditionally in literature, the visual of black and crows has a different connotation. And even in modern media, think of Hitchcock and the birds. We think of black as bad, and Baxian's eyes are obsidian, so emphasis on the black. And crows are equivalent sometimes to ravens in that they're evil or present ill omen. SJM is really testing our understanding of imagery and how it's associated with people.
Yeah. She's like, hey, you want to be racist? You want to be? Because I can show you.
Yeah.
I can show you guys if you're not thinking about things. I'm really fond of crows, but I grew up in California and there's a lot of crows here.
So many.
I love them. I want to train one to be my friend.
Because you are in need of friends?
You go to work during the week.
Yeah, I do go to work during the week.
What am I supposed to do with my time? Befriend crows. So, as you were saying with Baxian, he's depicted as, black eyes, black wings, and we have that in contrast to Pollux, who is described as having golden haired, golden skin, and as we know, he has white wings, which is similar to the Asteri guard, because he's basically the Asteri guard, but with a name. And gold is sometimes used to warn as bad, it's as we're seeing here, it's not really a good thing. Think about the Autumn King. It's not. Gold is kind of signs to think about, and later on Bryce is going to be described as having gold. So remember this moment, because I'm going to bring up a question later.
Great point that we've seen gold used before in association with the Asteri, and again, I think SJM is playing around here. Pollux sounds like what Western media would dub the perfect superhero, right? Perfect man, blonde, blue-eyed.
He's serving Aryan youth. That's what he is serving.
Very much serving that. He is the golden child of the Asteri, and shouldn't trust a golden-haired man.
If there's anything we've learned, we can have white blonde hair, golden blonde hair. No. Never safe. Now I'm going to hop on over to Ithan's point of view, because that's where we're at. It's just hopping around different point of views. And he's currently in Bryce's bathroom, which is, I feel like, a sacred space never to be judged. Isn't that the universal thing when someone comes over, hey, can I use your bathroom? And then immediately it's really messy right now, so
don't judge
it. Always.
Always.
And here is an example of that. Quote, Bryce's bathroom was exactly as he'd expected it to be, full of at least 3 kinds of shampoo and conditioners, an array of hair treatments, brushes, curling rods of 2 different sizes, a blow dryer left unplugged into a wall, half-burned candles, and makeup scattered up and down the marble counter like some kind of glittery bomb had gone off. The judgment. There's some borderline judgment there where there's a lot for hair treatment that is important. And it's you almost have to view this as Bryce's war room, because we know that she treats the way that she dresses, the way that she looks, as her own armor. And this is an example of her weaponizing the feminine. She knows how to make herself look good, and she knows how to manipulate those. So it's leave her sacred space alone. However, because we know Ithan's in love with Bryce, just being there, just smelling her, everything about it makes his, quote, chest tighten. And it's I don't know, it's just, to me, I'm suck it up. It's a frivolous pain. You don't even actually love her. If you loved her, you wouldn't be gone for 2 years like that.
There's going to be a lot of suck it up, Buttercup, in this episode.
I was as I was taking notes, I'm we are in episode 3. It is too early for me to be this done with people.
It's true. It is true. But I agree with you. Ithan in Bryce's bathroom unattended is unacceptable. She brought him... Did she bring him in there when she was taking care of his wings?
Into her room.
Yeah.
But just don't judge.
Right. I mean, if we think about it, like you were saying, it's where she puts on her armor, where she prepares for the day, where she weaponizes the feminine. It's equivalent to an inner sanctum. And he wasn't invited.
Yeah.
Ithan was not invited. He invited himself. And that feels like a violation. It feels sacrilegious. I would also like to point out, just because I can, that Ithan, when looking at the wound on his face, describes it as being caused by, quote, Sabine, a swipe of a claw-armed fist. So, the claws are coming out from the knuckles, like Wolverine style.
Ooh.
Just wanted to point that out there. I never noticed that.
It's kind of cool of her. I mean, she's evil, bad, but, kind of badass.
Yeah, kind of.
So, while Ithan's in Bryce's space, he's you know what? This is a really good space for me to spiral. I think this is where my descent will take place.
He feels safe being surrounded by Bryce's things.
He's oh, it smells so good in here. Let me transform into a wolf. I don't know. So he shifts into a wolf, And, quote, it occurred to him a moment after he took his wolf form that the bathroom wasn't quite large enough. Indeed, a swish of his tail knocked over various bottles, sending them scattering across the marble floor. Okay, like not only was he judging, now he's messing up her sacred space. He's knocking things to the floor. And, you know, you can view it as him disrupting her source of strength. He didn't need to do this there. He didn't need to like have this I'm going to stare at myself moment. He didn't need to turn into a wolf. Like I know he's having like a main character moment, but you don't need to do it in the real main character's bathroom.
It's true. It's true.
And eventually when he leaves the bathroom, he describes it. I just want to point out before I get to that quote. I just want to point out like he's considered like horse size. That is ginormous.
That is a giant wolf.
That's a freaking giant wolf. And I'm just thinking like any of our bathrooms. I think I have the biggest bathroom.
Probably.
I once had an inflatable couch in there.
No.
It was like a 2-person giant couch.
It was too big.
It was really big. And it did take me 3 days before I found motivation to deflate it. So I just worked around it. Anyway, as he leaves her bathroom, he kind of takes one more dig at it. He looks at it and describes it as, quote, the various crap Bryce had left lying around. And like, why does he make this shift in her bathroom? Why does he have to look at it, dismiss it like that? Like, it just feels like two warring places to happen. Because, like, there's a lot of judgment he has of himself when it comes to Bryce. So, yeah, it was just an interesting moment. You have thoughts?
I do have thoughts. So I'm going to go through part of the things that Ithan thinks about himself. Because right now what we're really finding is he's found a safe place that doesn't belong to him, and he's questioning his own self-worth in that process. And I think that disconnect is important because he's not in his own safe space. He's borrowing someone's safe space, which makes it not that safe. But he doesn't think of that because he associates Bryce with
safe space,
safety.
Yeah.
In his wolf form, Ithan, quote, inhales, and the breath stuck in his ribs, in some empty, strange pocket. So my theory here is that there's a lot of reasons for the empty pocket that Ithan feels, and right now he's trying to fill that. I think the empty pocket is caused by the loss of his brother in the Pack of Devils, the loss of Bryce 2 years ago, and now, because now she's in a relationship with Hunt.
Yeah.
So it's like he's lost her again.
Yep.
The loss of his pack, and potentially the fact that he doesn't have a mate, and maybe there's a mate in his future. So there's a lot of emptiness going on right now. I think Ithan shifts in Bryce's space because he was hoping to fill that hole by being in her space. Your smile.
You can't say fill that hole and not expect me to. I held back.
You did. I'm sorry, but I saw it. That's the problem. My next note, smelling her is not filling that hole.
You're just setting me up for failure.
Ithan thinks of himself as, quote, worse than an omega, friendless, kinless, unwanted. I think what Ithan thought would help heal him is actually just hurting him more. And so he lashes out because he's alone, he's afraid.
Yeah.
He's in pain, and that's why he goes in respecting Bryce's space and leaves not respecting her space.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Thanks.
He had no vision when his brother died. Like, I know he reached out to Bryce and she didn't pick up, but like, if he really wanted to get with her, just saying, you just wait. You fall. Like, you can't be surprised that she's now with someone else years later. I don't think he's surprised about it, but.
No, and I think for him, the breaking point was the fact that she was messing around with a leopard shifter in the bathroom.
Oh, right.
While Connor was being killed.
I forgot the shaming.
The shaming part.
The shaming part that he did.
Yeah.
After he has this, concern about filling holes, he decides to turn back into a human, right? Or humanoid form. Because he's just freaking out. And, when I was reading this section, I just had to remind myself that he's going to be the Prime in the next book. And we've had a number of listeners that have reached out and they've said like, hey, there's tons of clues that he's going to be the Prime. And that's fair. Like, there are clues. There's going to be little teasers of that. But my question is he really set up to be the next prime? Like, is he capable? Is he truly a leader there? You know, Bryce ends up as queen, as a true leader at the end of these books, right? Mm-hmm. It makes sense. Like, she's very take charge. Like, there's nothing about her becoming queen and then eventually, you know, destroying that title that is surprising.
Yeah.
And also, like, the fact that she was there for the kids in the attack for CC1. And then the fact that she's there for Emile now. Now, the only person who follows that same path is Ithan, right? He was there with her in book 1 once the kids were a threat. He is also the only one who agrees that, hey, they should probably help Ithan. Yeah, Ian.
You said
Ian.
when the kids were a threat?
You know, when the kids were threatened. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kids are a threat. When the kids were threatened. And then Ethan's the only one who agrees with her that Emile should be saved, right? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to find these parallels between the two because I'm like, if Bryce is the only real ruler here, and Ethan's going to be the only person who's a real ruler later. Yeah. We haven't really talked to Hypaxia yet. Like, these are the people who end up as, like, the top dogs later. No, pun intended, apparently. So are these moments signs of Ithan being a leader? Like, are these moments that, like, is this the clue? Is this it? Is that enough? I don't know if at this point, I'm like, I see nothing of him that shows leader.
Well, I think it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
There is a lot between now and the moment that Ithan becomes prime to build on. Is he deserving of that leadership role?
And I'm sure he's going to be one of the main characters in the next Crescent City books, and that's his growth.
Yeah, we'll see. I find it interesting you focused on the similarity between Ithan and Bryce as showing a parallel journey, maybe, as growth as a leader, because Bryce is not necessarily a leader right now. She doesn't want to be. I looked at it and I was like, this is why Ithan and Bryce can't be together.
Okay. They
both run into danger to help others without thinking through the consequences. They would get each other killed.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, in a way, Ithan almost got Bryce killed during Earth and Blood.
Let's just go with that. I agree.
So
I agree.
They shouldn't be together, and this is why Hunt is perfect for Bryce, even though they have tension.
So much tension. So much tension. Now we're back with Bryce. And she's getting Hunt out of his cell at the comitium, and he's pissy about it. Like, his ego is bruised. And Bryce points out that Isaiah is the one who put him in the cell, not Celestina, because he's like, Celestina did that. She's like, no, little whiner. Like, it was Isaiah. And so she says, quote, Isaiah put you in the cell. Hunt responds, whatever. Don't whatever me. God, she sounded like her mother. I get this. I hate whatevers. I think it's one of the most disrespectful things you can do. I make it. It's like, hi, my name is Jack or Jacqueline, never Jackie. And then whatevers. That's another thing I always make note. I just don't like whatevers.
Don't use whatever and don't use ellipses.
Yeah, that's so true. And if you can try to chew with your mouth closed, that's...
Yeah, make no noise while you eat.
Just avoid apples near me.
Then you can be best friends.
Exactly. You haven't eaten an apple once near me.
I try not to.
I really appreciate it. I really do. Anyway, though, it's just it's dismissive, it's disrespectful, and it's petulant. And Hunt is being a petulant child while Bryce is having to step into the role of parental figure. And it's almost like Bryce is going to keep this moment in mind and stay that way and forget that Hunt is not a petulant child. She kind of dismisses him from here on out, for the rest of this book and into the next.
Okay, that's a fair point.
And then Bryce tells Hunt that he shouldn't have gotten into the fight, which is right, he was stupid for it. But then this quote, lightning forked down his wings, go home. Was he really pissed she was here? Clearly he's embarrassed. He's trying to put the space there between them. It's just not an ideal moment between the two. I do feel like Hunt came in too pissy. But I just feel like this is one of those moments where it's going to leave a bad taste in Bryce's mouth, and too much stuff happens after this that it doesn't leave.
I agree with you. I also have a different perspective. I agree that Hunt is embarrassed. Not that he got caught, but that he got put in a cell.
In timeout.
He got put in timeout. He doesn't like that so much. However, I also feel like Hunt's attitude right now is because he does not want Pollux, who is there and is very visible, fixating on Bryce. And the more that Bryce and Hunt appear close, the more Pollux is going to fixate on Bryce.
Yeah, that's
right?
fair.
Because Pollux exists to make Hunt miserable.
Fair.
You know, we also have to think about this in the context of Hunt hates Pollux. Pollux is a skis bag. And Hunt's only mission in life is to keep Bryce safe, no matter what, and bone her. And neither of those are going to happen when Pollux is around.
Or for a long time for either.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. My view of how Hunt is treating Bryce is that without saying it, he wants Bryce to leave as quickly as possible so that there's no expression of love between them.
Yeah.
So that she's just another fly in Pollux's view. But the more that she spends there, the more that she tries to connect with Hunt, the more she's going to become a target for Pollux.
Love that.
In the abusive and assaulty kind of way. This is not even on Bryce's radar. Quote, she'd forgotten about Pollux.
Yeah.
Who's just heard their entire exchange, and I can guarantee Hunt has not forgotten, because the second Pollux talks to her, Hunt's like, back, don't talk to her. I think Bryce does finally understand, because once Hunt is like, don't talk to her, she tells Hunt, quote, spare me the protective alpha hole act. So she's clued in, but it takes her a while to get there.
Yeah.
And so that's, for me, that's my perspective on Hunt right now. I also want to note that while they're in these cells, Bryce gives us Baxian's full name, Baxian Argos. Did you know that Argos is the name of Odysseus's faithful dog?
No.
From the Odyssey. And I thought this was interesting because you could say, once upon a time when Danika was alive, she went on an Odyssey, right? Finding out the information about the Asteri and the truth of the Fae. On the other hand, who's about to go on an Odyssey? Bryce Adelaide Quinlan.
Oh, love it.
I also want to note that Baxian is described as Sandrill's, quote, chief spymaster and tracker, and it sounds a lot like Danika, too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's true. It also sounds like a LinkedIn title.
Yeah.
My role is chief spymaster and tracker.
Yeah, it's a made-up title.
Please congratulate Baxian for his promotion. Bryce, the queen of weaponizing the feminine and weaponizing sex. We have, like you said, Pollux was not on her radar, and now Pollux is. So therefore, Pollux is happy to insult her, sexualize her, everything, right? So Pollux makes a show of looking her up and down, from her head to her stilettos. Quote, I thought your kind usually worked the night shift. Bryce snickered. Any other outdated jabs to throw my way? Sex work is a respectable profession in Crescent City. Now, of course, like we've talked about this so many times in other seasons and with other books, where it's like when people have nothing left to insult, they're going to insult women and sex and their relation to sex. Like, it's just, a tale as old as time. And like, he has to insult sex workers. The way that he's insulting sex workers is to insult only female sex workers, as if male sex workers don't exist. And I think about this a lot when it comes to like OnlyFans and male people, like male people and males who have OnlyFans. They don't get shamed like it,
of course,
enough,
not.
versus women who have OnlyFans. It's like, just let them do their thing.
Yeah,
they're doing great work.
Yeah,
let them be. Pollux then tries to use sexual assault as a threat. Quote, and I thought half-breed whores were supposed to keep their mouths closed. Fortunately, I know the perfect thing to shove in that trap of yours to shut you up. Bryce winked saucily. Careful, I use teeth. Bryce counters sexual assault with use of sex as weapon. So she's not like saying, ew, that's so gross, or don't you dare touch me. She's like, yeah, I'll do it, and I'll bite your dick. Like, it's implying a certain amount of consent in a way.
Yeah.
Of saying, hey, I'm going to use teeth. And I just love the idea of like, she's obviously not granting him consent, but in this like jab back and forth, she's shutting down what he's saying by owning the act itself.
Yeah. And I think what it's doing, and I think this is important as a breadcrumb, is it's demonstrating that Bryce views a dick in her mouth as a power move for her, not for the male.
Yeah.
Women are in power
when there's a dick in their mouth.
When giving a blowjob, not the male who's receiving.
Okay, yes.
And it's a breadcrumb because she does really use teeth. I'm just saying.
I forgot about that. She does. All of this is for Bryce to really show who's boss. You know, like, it's just, I respect this moment a lot. Quote, Bryce leaned forward, close enough that if Pollux extended an arm, his hand could wrap around her throat. Pollux's eyes flared, noting that fact. Bryce said sweetly, I'm going to make your life a living hell if you touch him again. I feel like this is super important because, once again, we have Bryce who's fighting Hunt's battles. Later on, Bryce notes that, like, she's happy that when Hunt doesn't defend her or like jump into her battles. There's a moment, and we'll cover it, where she's just like, oh my God, he doesn't. I'm surprised that he's not doing this. And it's like, but you're doing the thing that you're happy that he didn't do to you. And this is like multiple times now that she's been like, I'll protect you. I'll do this to you. Yeah. And she's being the alpha hole to Hunt. You know, this protective alpha male bullshit that she keeps telling him to back off with, she keeps doing to him, sometimes worse. Yeah. And double than what he does to her.
I completely agree with you. She is a little bit of a hypocrite here. And we're going to see how her protectiveness over Hunt is going to create a strain in the power dynamics, because Hunt views them as equals. Yep. However, every time one of them protects the other in a way that the other doesn't like, it is implying that one is trying to be more powerful than the other in their dynamic. And it just doesn't work for them. But they don't know how to stop it.
They really don't.
It's so frustrating.
And like, at this point, I don't think they do.
No.
Well, that's fine.
Yeah. I mean,
we'll examine book 3 eventually.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yeah.
In this same moment, Bryce starts throwing her starlight around, and we're going to see that a couple times this episode. Remember, the start of the book, Bryce doesn't know how to control her starlight. It flares up when she has thoughts and feelings about Hunt. It flares up when Cormac shows up. However, right now, in feeling protective of Hunt, she's able to initiate that starlight. Quote, she let her eyes glow. She let her power surge, bright enough that Pollux reared back, an arm flung over his eyes. She backed away a few steps, pivoting toward Hunt once more. He cocked an eyebrow, eyes shining beneath the bruises. Before I get into Hunt's reaction, Bryce is finding ways to control her power without practice. Like, it's becoming an inherent thing. Now she can't do it all the time. Yeah. And sometimes her light is still going to flare up without her control. But I want to point out the subtleness of, she can control it. She couldn't control it 10 chapters ago.
Yeah, now she knows how to use it as a threat.
Right,
a little glow.
Right, which is minor.
But it's something.
Yeah. Now, let's also keep in mind that Hunt seems to get off on Bryce protecting him. Yeah. And I think it's because it's not really a life or death situation. Pollux is behind bars.
Yeah, that's true.
And he likes Bryce utilizing the power she has. He wants to see. He's curious about it. But that's not always the case. And I think it's a really fine line for both of them when it's okay for the other to be protective and when it's not okay. And I think I've figured out Bryce's. And I'll talk about it later in the episode.
I wonder how much of it is also to do with when Bryce uses her power, his magic responds to it. So I'm wondering if there's like his level of like comfort. Is his magic being like, yes, that like this is okay. I'm okay with this because like I can help it. Yeah. On a level.
Okay.
You know.
We shall see.
We shall see.
I do want to point out when Bryce says no more fights, Hunt says, quote, if I say yes, can we go home now? He gave her a mournful pout, almost identical to Syrinx's begging. Just a nice reminder that these two are linked, Syrinx and Hunt. And, you know, Hunt's tune has changed real fast. He's gone from pissy, asshole, go home, Bryce, and now, can I go home with you?
Can you tuck me into bed?
Because it's hot that Bryce stood up to Pollux.
Yeah. As Bryce and Hunt are about to leave, Baxian is there, and he, quote, wore lightweight black armor made of overlapping plates. It reminded her of a reptilian version of Hunt's suit. So it links Baxian to Hunt. You know, we have the similarity in how they're dressing, and that has also, you know, and Hunt's changed and stuff. But then I feel like the use of reptiles is important because you have reptiles that can adapt. You know, they are cold-blooded, so they're like, wait a minute, they're cold-blooded, and that's why they can adapt to extreme heat, and they can, you know, sometimes chameleons can adapt to their actual surroundings, and I feel like the choice of reptiles is important because it's not like a snake. Snake would then imply some kind of like, evil, right? Like they're going to double cross you or something. So the choice of reptiles, it felt like a choice from SJM's part.
Absolutely. Because we almost always associate snakes with an evil or conniving or
some kind of deceptiveness.
Right,
yeah.
exactly. Because, biblical.
It's not even in the Bible.
I'm sorry.
It
sounds like it hurt your feelings.
It's just not even. It was Milton.
Yes.
And then people said, oh, yeah, that's in the Bible. No, it's not, people. No, it's okay. We're done.
Of course, Pollux needs to have the last word before Hunt and Bryce leave. Quote, Pollux sneered from his cell. You two mongrels deserve each other. I want to point out the definition of mongrel. A dog of no definable type or breed, which sounds pretty accurate for Bryce, who's half human, and Hunt, who knows what the fuck he is. Pollux means it as an insult because, he's pure, he's perfect, as an angel or as a Malak. And Bryce responds by blowing him a kiss, which I love because, A, it's so like her, it's funny, but also it demonstrates what we can see through the lack of this ever coming up again. It doesn't bother her, and it doesn't bother Hunt to be called mongrels.
Yeah.
I think it's, sex is power, humor is power, and I think just Bryce and Hunt are very comfortable with who they are.
Yeah.
And nothing Pollux can say can really disturb them about that.
It does make me feel good knowing that Pollux can't shake them up.
Yeah.
Like when you think about it, like neither walk away feeling like I don't deserve you. Like there is an agreement of like Pollux sucks.
Yeah.
Whatever he says is void.
Yeah, exactly.
They have a lot of other places to feel stressed about.
Exactly. Yes, they do.
Chapter 11 takes us to Tharion, and he's a walking contradiction. It's just like I didn't realize how much I despise certain characters until the analysis, and it's really making me look at them. Tharion thinks, quote, honestly, even years into the position, he had no idea how he'd wound up in charge of the River Queen's intelligence. His schoolmates probably laughed every time his name came up. A thoroughly average, if not lazy, student. He'd gotten his passing grades mostly through charming his teachers. His favorite subject had been lunch. Now, in the next chapter, when Bryce asks him how he knows certain things, he reminds her like, hey, I'm a spy master, by the way. I hate it. This section's going to make me analyze him in a way that I don't like, because to me, this shows that he's struggling with his own identity. And, in one way he views himself as lazy. In another way, he views himself as being a master and just having natural talent, right? Let's forget about the fact that he's engaged to the princess, let's forget about the whole nepotism thing of it all, which is fine. He's conveniently leaving out the fact, or maybe I'm here because I took advantage of a young, naive girl and now I'm locked in here. Maybe that's why you got it, because her mom sees what kind of lazy ass you are and is trying to help lift you up. But of course, that never pops up into his mind. And I hate shedding sympathetic light to him. But I think this analysis in this section of him is going to really look into how he views himself versus what he's trying to exude.
I agree with you. I just had a random thought. What if the River Queen put him into this role hoping he would die?
I get it. I don't see why not. Honestly, I feel like the River Queen, I'm almost wondering now, put him in all this shit so that he could walk away and be like, I quit.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's waiting for him to be the one to say I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And instead he grins and bears it, which is exactly what she probably doesn't want him to do.
Yeah.
And that's a pride thing.
Oh, absolutely. For both of them.
Yep, for both of them. I also think that Tharion is the product of right place, right time. And is it just luck, or was he Peter principled? And for those of you who don't know what Peter principled is, it's when someone continues to be promoted until it's beyond their capability.
Oh, I never heard of that.
Okay, it's common in corporate America.
In presidencies,
really just white males.
Yeah.
Being promoted until they can't even do their job anymore.
That's so frustrating, because that's literally so many CEOs and people in power.
Yep.
And just chief level.
Yeah.
Fuck. All right, go ahead.
Lots of people in leadership are Peter principled.
Yep.
And I think this is the case for Tharion as well. I think he's been lucky and he's found ways to adapt to be successful, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a good fit for him. Because instead of torturing people for information, quote, people were far more inclined to talk over food, though anytime he'd tortured an enemy, he'd puked his guts up afterward. Fortunately, he'd learned that a cold beer, some mirth root, and a few rounds of poker usually got him what he needed. SJM is usually pretty consistent when she talks about vomiting, and vomiting is usually a sign of humanity or weakness in her books. So, what are we seeing? Tharion is weak when it comes to doing the hard things, the torture aspect of things. And maybe that's meant to fool us into thinking that he's morally good, but I think instead we're supposed to see that he uses food as power in these situations to his advantage because he's ill-suited for the role of captain of intelligence. But the thing is, he can only get by on using food as a weapon for so long, and it's not appropriate for all situations, and I think we're going to see that with him and the choices he makes.
Such a good point. I love this idea of like that he just kind of like gets by. He just manages to get by, and at the same time, like there's a certain amount of like, yeah, I can do this attitude, even though he might have some slight freakouts. But it's just like these men in this world, and in ours, who just get by. Yeah. Meanwhile, the amount of women I know who suffer from, what's it called? I just had it in my head, like where they think they're not doing a good imposter syndrome. The amount of women that feel like when they're doing their job have imposter syndrome. Men are just really confident in themselves when they really shouldn't be.
That is a generalization.
Men can have imposter syndrome.
Men can also have imposter syndrome.
Yes.
But that's against the point of our podcast.
Men can have imposter syndrome.
Tharion does not.
No, I just feel like when I've talked about it with people, I hear it come up amongst women a lot more than I've heard it come up amongst men.
I agree. Honestly, the only person who ever's told me that they have imposter syndrome is my own father.
Whoa. All right, this just got deep.
But, that's a very vulnerable thing to admit to. Yeah. And that's not something most men.
Most men don't do. Versus like every single one of my friends, except for you, I can't remember, but like who've like started something new have called and been like, no, I mean, you've never said imposter syndrome, but there's always been moments of like, am I in over my head? Yeah. That's conversations that I have had with every single woman in my life with their job. Yeah. And never once in any of my friends, male friends, have I heard that from them. Yeah. I would love to make more men feel uncomfortable. Tharion views himself as this lazy, unintelligent, and undeserving individual. And the only thing he was good at was charming, which is how he got the princess, right? And it makes sense why we see him charm Bryce so hard, because he also like doesn't get his way with her. Yeah. And he goes so hard with his charming with her, right? And the way he hypes himself up to Bryce and to the others, like you can really start to see it as him overcompensating.
Absolutely.
Being like, I'm this amazing spy master. I'm doing all these like wonderful things. But at the same time, like he caves and tells them about Sofie and everything else real fast. Yeah. He divulges a lot of information because he knows he can't do it on his own. Right. He's not a spy master. When you think about it, if the others are smart and talented and he's just charm, then he's as worthless and as nothing as he expects to be, right? He can't even torture well, unlike Hunt, the Umbra Mortis, who tortures people like a champ. I mean, he doesn't know when he had that breakdown. None of these people could even survive in Prythian.
No. Not at all. Not at all.
Like, it just, the amount of torturing everyone else has done there. Yeah. So it's much. Kind of like, all right, well, that happened. Yeah. Maybe they feel a little dark. Not a single person's throwing up over there. No. Everyone is, they're all soft in my mind. Meanwhile, though, I feel like because charm meets charm with like Tharion and Bryce, I think that's part of the reason why Bryce doesn't fall for it. And I think that starts to threaten him as well because his power isn't working on her. Tharion still sucks though. That's my note I have there. It's like, yes, he has all these like vulnerability issues and, probably doesn't view himself all that great, but who he can still suck.
He can still suck because who he sounds like? He sounds like Ithan. They both have kind of self-doubt right now. Yeah. And in future episodes, we're going to see how they start to get close. Yeah. And you know what? They both suck.
They deserve each other. Tharion struggles with not belonging anywhere, and he removes responsibility from that feeling. Quote, Tharion couldn't ever move above, he reminded himself. His duties required him here at the River Queen's beck and call. So remember, this is Tharion's point of view. You know, it's not first person, but it's still like, you know, a close third person. And, you know, the terms of like beck and call, it just kind of implies, you know, a certain level of like forced victimization there, that he's stuck there without a choice. Mm-hmm. There's always choices.
Always choices.
You know, you can work something out. And it's like he really gets himself stuck when it comes to the River Queen of like victim mentality. Mm-hmm. No ownership of what he's done. No understanding of the consequences of his actions. But let's continue. Quote, Tharion liked TV, liked eating food that wasn't soggy at best, cold and wet at worst. He liked sleeping in a warm bed, sprawled over covers and pillows, and not tucked into a seaweed hammock swinging in the currents. Tharion, I believe, likes the above world because it matches his own identity crisis. Mm-hmm. The above world represents not the River Queen and not his responsibilities.
I completely agree with you. And I think that we see this aspect of Tharion from a metaphorical perspective as well. And what do I mean by that? I believe Tharion wants to be an otter. So right before all of this is going on, he looks out into the water and, quote, an otter shot past. Yellow vest blazing bright in the river water, a sealed tube clenched between his little fangs, a creature of both worlds. Tharion wants to be a creature of both worlds. Yeah. He has a preference for above, being on land, being around Bryce. And though he's obsessed with that idea, in earlier chapters we learned that the Istros is his friend. He cries with, you know, the river cries with him, laughs with him. Mm-hmm. So he's very connected to the water. He has water power. I don't think he wants to necessarily give those things up. Yeah. He just doesn't want to live his life in the water anymore. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Who loves otters? Bryce.
It was like me.
me too.
I love river otters.
Tharion wants Bryce's affection so badly.
Yeah.
He wants to be an otter.
I mean, I feel like Bryce is the first woman in his life that we can see it up to this point who isn't trying to trap him. Mm-hmm. In his mind. Yeah. Isn't trying to trap him. And how much of it is like he's able to charm and get whoever he wants and she's just another person.
Oh, yeah. It's completely superficial.
Yeah. But I'm also, I mean, we'll get into it. I have reasons as to why I think why Hunt's not threatened by Tharion. Mm-hmm. So we'll get into that later.
Excuse us while we hydrate and you listen to this ad.
One of my absolute favorite hobbies is my skincare routine. I take the time every single day to take care of my skin. And as I've gotten older, I've really had to up my skincare game.
You've really inspired me with skincare because I will admit, I thought it was only for my dad when I was growing up.
Really?
I hated skincare for years.
And I absolutely love taking time every night with my bedtime routine and my morning routine. And I absolutely love using OneSkin's topical face and eye cream. We've been using it for a couple weeks now. And I will say I have noticed a difference.
I have too. For the first time in years, someone asked me my age and I said 35 and they're like, whoa, you look way younger than that.
The eye cream specifically, I put it also between like on the bridge of my nose. And that was an area that I just have noticed. I'm like, oh, well, someone's looking a little bit more deflated there. Over these last couple of weeks since using OneSkin's eye cream, I have absolutely noticed a difference there.
I feel like all the age around my eyes and between my eyebrows has just melted away. It's now a must-have in my life. It's one of those products that you're like, yep, I'm never changing you.
The fact that they have over 8,000 5-star reviews speaks for itself.
Honestly, it does.
The beauty of OneSkin is that their topical supplements are powered by their own proprietary peptide. It's scientifically proven to target the dysfunctional senescent cells that start to accumulate around age 30, which I'm 34 now. Those things have been accumulating for 4 years now.
Time to get rid of them. For those of you who love science and clinical studies, in a third-party 12-week clinical study, OS1's face product was clinically proven to strengthen the skin barrier, improve skin health markers, and diminish visible signs of aging. Can you believe wrinkles were diminished in 87% of users?
So many other skincare products out there really just focus on the symptoms rather than targeting the root causes of aging.
OneSkin is the world's first skin longevity company. By focusing on the cellular aspects of aging, OneSkin keeps your skin looking and acting younger for longer. Get started today with 15% off using the code BOOKTALK at oneskin.co. That's 15% off oneskin.co with the code BOOKTALK, BOOKTALK.
After you purchase, they'll ask where you heard about them. Please support us and tell them Book Talk sent you. Amy, when we got the call that HelloFresh would be sponsoring this episode, I think I screamed because I love HelloFresh.
I was so excited as well. There's a reason why HelloFresh is America's #1 meal kit.
HelloFresh makes life so much easier, and when we got our HelloFresh box, I was reintroduced with how amazing and tasty the food is.
What's great about them is you get more than enough for just yourself. You can cook for your partners or your roommates, and there's plenty to go around.
I absolutely hate planning my weekly meals. You also have to then go grocery shopping, and you have to get the right ingredients and try to not spend $200 in the grocery store. And HelloFresh just cuts all of that out. They bring you fresh ingredients and recipes so that you can cook all of these meals at home. It's so easy. You don't even have to be an experienced chef to know what you're doing. The instructions are so clear.
And what I love most about it is there's always just the right amount of produce or product, and nothing goes to waste.
When I cooked with HelloFresh this past week, I did not throw away a single item that I did not eat.
And it's not like you get the same meal every week. HelloFresh has a changing menu of 50 recipes to choose from, and those are changing constantly. So it makes it easy to find something that you actually crave.
And it's great because they have so many different customizable options to fit with your family. So if you want to get the veggie option and then swap in protein, you easily can. I got the veggie week option. I split it with my roommate. She had an absolute blast and was asking for when our next HelloFresh box is coming in, which I'm like, excuse me, think I'm sharing with you the second time?
Get your own box. What's nice is if you are a single person, you don't have a family, HelloFresh customizes the serving sizes. There are servings for just 2 people, so for you and your leftovers tomorrow, or up to 6 portion sizes for families.
And for a limited time, kids eat free. They sent us the kids meal too.
I freaking loved it.
I enjoyed that so much. It was the perfect snack for me.
Go to HelloFresh.com/BookTalkKids to unlock this exclusive offer. 1 free kids meal per box for 2 months while your subscription is active. That's free kids meals just by going to HelloFresh.com/BookTalkKids. BOOKTALKKIDS. Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.
Move your career further, faster in just 2 days with a Harvard Professional and Executive Development Program. Advance your leadership skills, craft smarter business strategies, build your network, and transform how you work and think to keep your career moving forward. You'll earn a certificate and can add Harvard to your resume with Harvard Professional and Executive Development. Learn more at professional.dce.harvard.edu/Spotify.
Chronic migraine is 15 or more headache days a month, each lasting 4 hours or more.
Botox, onabotulinum toxin A, prevents headaches in adults with chronic migraine. It's not for adults with migraine with 14 or fewer headache days a month. It prevents, on average, 8 to 9 headache days a month versus 6 to 7 for placebo.
Prescription Botox is injected by your doctor. Effects of Botox may spread hours to weeks after injection, causing serious symptoms. Alert your doctor right away, as difficulty swallowing, speaking, breathing, eye problems, or muscle weakness can be signs of a life-threatening condition. Patients with these conditions before injection are at highest risk. Side effects may include allergic reactions, neck and injection site pain, fatigue, and headache. Allergic reactions can include rash, welts, asthma symptoms, and dizziness. Don't receive Botox if there's a skin infection. Tell your doctor your medical history, muscle or nerve conditions, including ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease, myasthenia gravis, or Lambert-Eaton syndrome, and medications, including botulinum toxins, as these may increase the risk of serious side effects.
Ask your doctor and visit BotoxChronicMigraine.com or call 1-800-44-BOTOX to learn more.
While Tharion reads through the emails in Sofie's inbox and sent folders, I just want to point out that he procrastinates his need to submerge in water.
Yeah.
Because his mare biology requires it. And I think his procrastination kind of foreshadows his choice at the end of the novel.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he really, really, really doesn't care to be in the water.
His choice at the end of the novel always floors me.
Yeah. But I think we're going to find it very believable.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like there's
I
hints
think
of
his
it.
bitchness is completely believable. With ACOTAR, we had Reese's Talon toes. And now, with Crescent City, let us introduce Talon fingers. More things we don't need. More appendages that are talons that we don't need. Not as bad as talon toes. However, far more dangerous.
Yep.
I don't need those popping up in places. Talk about when he picks a booger, Amy. What about other places?
I wonder.
Like you said, Tharion has to rush back so he doesn't lose his mare magic. And, quote, talons curled off his fingers as Tharion thrusted them into his hair, sliding back the red strands. Fucking inconvenience. My note is like, talon anything, no thank you. Mm-hmm. But in all seriousness, like, he's viewing this as an inconvenience. His powers, his identity of who he really is an inconvenience. And Tharion's self-hatred really shines through with his mare side being that inconvenience to him. Once he transforms back, quote, water drained out, clearing the chamber, and Tharion remained seated, staring at his fins. Waving idly in the air, he willed the change, pain lacing down his legs as his fin split into two, revealing his naked body. So I think it's important that this scene, this moment, ends with him naked, because there's an element of vulnerability here, right? He is stripped down. He is absolutely bare while he is feeling this pain that he is welcoming. And we also have the fact that he's lost countless pairs of shoes and he has to walk away with his soaked pants. Like, there's been a buildup of resentment with this whole process where he doesn't have to resent it. Like, it could very easily be a thing that you schedule in your day, go, and it doesn't have to take over your life, but he's allowing it take over his life because he waits last minute and now it's taken over your life. Right.
If he did a little more planning, he could go naked or with a towel, barefoot. And I think part of that resentment is because he puts it off every time, because he doesn't plan properly, he ruins or loses items that help him blend in above.
Pants,
right? Shoes. So of course he's going to feel a resentment because now he's like, I have to go back and get changed and all my stuff's under, in the beneath and all this stuff. So you know what, Tharion? It's called a calendar.
It's called a calendar. It's called just like being a grown-up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just go. You're making it harder than it really needs to be.
Yep.
And the obvious risk, like the fact that it's not like so much is at stake. It's not just like, oh no, he's gonna not be able to be a mayor for a week. It's like he loses his powers completely.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a little thing.
Right.
When Tharion thinks about having to find Sofie and Emile and how he has little choice than to follow what he's told to do, he thinks, quote, he supposed he forfeited the right to choose long ago. Oh, so sad. So sad that my note, dramatic little idiot. It's just like, it's just so dramatic, and it's just so victim, poor me. I suppose I gave it up. It's like claiming ownership without claiming ownership. Like, I gave up that right. I forfeited that right long ago. It's like, yes, but when the way that it's structured implies bitchiness.
He's making himself out to be a victim when he's not a victim.
He's not.
Tharion then takes an excursion in response to a report about an abandoned boat in an adolescent-sized vest with Bodegraven written on it. At the site, Tharion weaves through, quote, swaying and hissing reeds, which is kind of spooky.
Yeah.
We get this sense of, eeriness. Tharion then discovers the boat that Emile was once on with a ton of food wrappers and trash. I want to point out something that Tharion does not think about, and that's the fact that Emile has been in a death camp for 3 years, and he hasn't probably eaten properly for a long time.
Yeah.
So, with all this food that's been eaten and all the trash from the food, there's a small moment of dread and pity that Tharion feels, but he doesn't really think about the fact that, what if this kid is overeaten and he has indigestion? No one's been around him to warn him, this is what happens when you eat too much after so long. Because Tharion's point of view doesn't dwell on that or his empathy for Emile, it implies to me that Tharion's focus is truly just on Tharion's own mission and not on the fact that Emile is a child, because at the end of the day, he's human. And it's showing some of that bias.
Yeah.
That Fendyr have that we're going to see later on.
Bryce is going to point that out a lot. And I feel like, personally, Tharion's the most guilty out of all of them.
Tharion's the most guilty?
Tharion. Why did I suddenly check out on his name?
Because that's how shitty he is. I don't know.
Truth.
One thing before we move into chapter 12, aka...
the longest chapter in the world. I'm going to complain about it the whole time.
Tharion observes the Lightfall insignia, and I didn't think I had any more World War II references in me, but apparently I do. So, the Lightfall insignia is a golden sun bracketed by a gun and a blade. And to me, that has a lot of similarities to the Soviet Union flag, which is a star with a sickle and a hammer. And if you studied World War II, you know that the Soviet Union, despite being a communist country, was an ally to the United States and assisted in World War II in bringing the Nazis down, essentially.
More nuanced than that.
It's more nuanced.
Yeah, I mean, but in case there's that one person that's truly never really learned about World War II, it's only because their partnership with Germany didn't work out the way they wanted it to.
Exactly. It's not. When I use the word ally, it is a very loose term.
Yeah, it ended up being oh, we keep losing people. I guess an enemy of my enemy.
Right. Exactly. And that's why the quote-unquote partnership between the U.S. and the Soviet Union disintegrates immediately after World War II.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to point out that there's going to be some reluctant partnerships between Bryce and company with Ophion. They are going to collaborate in some ways. And I felt historically there felt like a similarity here.
Yeah.
Also, the sun is a connection to Lightfall, but also the sun drives away or hides stars, aka the Asteri. When the sun is up, you can't see the stars. Also, the gun and blade, these are tools available to humans. The only tools that they can probably use for resistance.
Yeah.
And to me also shows that they're willing to use any means necessary, from sword to gun. Whatever tool I got, I'm going to use it.
I like this World War II. Now I'm okay, the Asteri are the axis of power. That's Germany, Italy, and Japan. Ophion, you can think, is Russia.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone else are the Allies.
Yep.
Wow. I wonder if SJM really did things in World War II.
I think her bachelor's degree is in history.
I mean, clearly, yeah. Like, she's knows her history.
Yeah. So with the death camp connection as well.
Yeah.
It definitely feels sprinkled in there purposefully.
Yeah.
I believe it or not, have another World War II connection later on in this episode. It makes
sense. I mean, I really like the idea of like Ophion being Russia, because like during World War II, because it's like you have like this moment of like Ophion's not here to like help you guys.
Right.
Ophion has their own agenda.
Yep.
They just need your assistance on this thing.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. Welcome to what I would like to call the longest chapter in the world. And I begin to describe how hard this chapter is for me as I take notes. Like, as I was typing it, I'm like, I hate this. As I was reading this, I'm like, I hate this. As I was writing it, I hate this. As I texted Amy, I hate this. And it's a long, long chapter, but there's just so much to it.
There's so much in it.
And I don't get to skim as lightly as I would like to.
Agreed.
All that said and done, we're going to start off strong with sex, food, and power. After Hunt and Bryce leave his cell, they get some ice cream and they walk back home. And, quote, Bryce sat beside him, pistachio ice cream melting down the side of her cone. And Hunt tried not to stare as she looked away, each dribbling green droplet. Was this punishment for his fight with Pollux, to sit here and watch this? Sex is food, sex is power, power is food. It's all interchangeable here. And there's a certain amount of like knowing what's happening and what's not happening. Like, you know, it's not hard to like turn eating ice cream into something sexy. But however, like, it's also, damn it, I have to sidetrack.
Remember this when you're editing.
I know. This will be super fast. So sometimes during like random sporting events, when that ESPN is covering, they'll just like not say things, but they leave the camera on something for a while. And that something, in one case, were two young women who were eating ice cream cones. And ESPN then posted this video. They're not saying anything. They're just leaving the camera on two young women on a hot day eating ice cream cones. And the comments were just tons and tons of men saying the most crude, disgusting things about it. And so I thought of, when I read this, I was like, you know, like, ooh, like, it is sexy amongst like what they're doing right now with each other. But then I just thought of that and I just like, screw you, ESPN. Anyway, let's get back to this. Same goes for Bryce. Quote, he remembered his own ice cream, coffee, and time to lick away the melting bits. He tried not to note the way her eyes tracked each movement of his tongue. Like, they're both so hungry for food and sex and for power and for each other.
Yeah, and it's undeniable how hot for each other they are, even when they fight.
Yeah. And
I think it's going to foreshadow that real soon. They're going to be like, we got to end this pact. Like, I can't stop. I can't do this anymore.
It's so true. Like, please let us. Dumbest idea Bryce has had.
It really is. It really is. I also want to point out, on the theme of food as power, that Bryce calls Hunt fighting with Pollux and Baxian as, quote, pummeling them into tenderized meat, which I thought was pretty funny.
I really feel like this chapter is where SJM was like, you know what? I want to bring back
food as power.
Food metaphors. Finally, Queen. She's so good at them.
She is very good at them.
If the night before, with Cormac and then Ithan showing up, was a test of Hunt's patience, because that was the night before.
Yeah.
Then this episode, this day, is a test of Hunt's PTSD.
Is Hunt healed?
No.
The answer is no.
Everyone says no.
No.
And yet, does Bryce care? No.
And why is that, Jack?
Does my next note have to do with it?
No, don't. I thought it was. I thought it was going to be a great segue.
No, it wasn't. That's like a segue for like pages and pages and pages
later.
down.
We'll discuss that later.
Yes. Bryce asks Hunt about his affinity for machines, and Hunt thinks about how he used to hurt and kill people with his knowledge of machinery. Quote, Hunt trained his gaze upon the Istros. The relentless sun was finally setting, casting the river in reds and gold and oranges. And this is before, like, so he's like, he looks at that before he answers Bryce.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like you can tell with him looking at the river, that's him reliving his trauma. The Istros almost is described like a battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
You have blood, as the red, the gold as Pollux, and then in other angels, and then the orange like it's burning flames. So I feel like you can tell that he's like looking back to the past, and he's seeing that there with the colors. Even the sun on the Istros is considered quote unquote relentless, which is something that War also is. Like he's having flashbacks.
Yeah,
my man.
really
Like,
bad.
yeah, and as Hunt tells Bryce about what he did for Sandriel, he can't even look at Bryce. Like, he's too ashamed of what he did and his struggle with it.
If you think about this objectively, if you're on Sandriel's side, if you're on the Asteri's side, the tactic to steal Ophion mech suits, sabotage them, send them back, is actually really smart strategy.
Feels like you're just wasting time.
It's cruel, but it's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of war, it is a little wasteful. I understand what you're saying, but it allows them to continue to do it over and over again rather than the supply line being changed.
Look, in my Jacktatorship, yes, your face.
Please continue.
In my Jacktatorship, I just feel like, I would prefer a more seamless, efficient use of war strategies. Granted, I'm not Sandriel, but my Jacktatorship is there to look out for my Jacktopia.
Fair. Hunt, like you, can't see how maybe strategically this is advantageous, even though he's been a general. And that's because he's
the low-level shade towards me. I'm sorry.
I was trying to find a smooth segue to my note.
So Hunt, who's dumb like you, sorry, who has no vision and isn't even a good general. No, continue. Someone just got kicked out of Jacktopia.
I have my own topia, thank you.
What is it?
Amytopia. Amyopolis. Hunt can't see the strategic. Granted, Hunt, as a slave, as someone who was forced to sabotage these machines that killed humans, he can't see Sandriel's side of why she would want to do this, of why maybe strategically it was helpful to her cause, because at the end of the day, he's a victim of the act.
Yeah.
He feels guilty in a way that Sandriel never felt guilty. Because he was the engineer of the flaws. She was just the commander. I think that this, in general, and Hunt's PTSD is interesting commentary on war and the people who participate in building weapons of war. Think about the fact Einstein and Oppenheimer both expressed extreme guilt for their roles in developing the atomic bomb for World War II. On the flip side, President Truman, in public, always defended the use of the bomb in Japan in 1945. Now, in private, he's reported to have expressed guilt. But in public, he always defended the choice. And, I think Hunt is a very interesting tool to make that commentary. But not blatant either, which I liked.
Yeah. As Bryce and Hunt keep talking, Hunt admires Bryce as she sympathizes with him. Quote, "The sun lit her eyes to gold so brilliant it knocked the breath from him." Remember, gold before was Pollux and the Asteri Guard. Now it's Bryce. I would like to propose the idea of two different thoughts here. The idea of two thoughts. One is that gold continues to be a warning sign. That gold continues to kind of be like, hey, it's not all good. And maybe this is like warning that, hey, Bryce isn't going to have your best intentions, which is true. Bryce will not have anywhere near his best intentions. For the rest of his life at this point. Or Bryce is healing gold and she's healing the color and what it represents. I think it could be used both ways.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, well, let's think about the fact that this is from Hunt's point of view. And Hunt views Bryce as a treasure. He treasures her. And he expresses that multiple times throughout this book, both internally and externally. Quote, "Hunt snorted, silently thanking Erd for bringing Bryce into his life." Gold, to me, from Hunt's perspective, whether he understands the connotations of the Asteri or not, the only thing that comes through is the fact that he values Bryce so much.
Yeah.
And maybe it makes him blind to some of her flaws.
I guess it would be almost like a 2-level representation where on Hunt's level, it's she's his treasure, something to protect. On a larger literary level of like, you know, metaphors throughout, I think it could be, hey, Bryce has got some of that sneakiness in her.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. She is described as having amber eyes.
Like the Autumn King.
Like the Autumn King, like Lydia Servos. And I think there's at least one more character with amber eyes. So there is this connotation of questionability.
Yep.
And do the ends justify the means?
That's like something I had to tell myself over and over in this particular chapter of being like, everyone ends up happy. Everything works out. Bryce keeps pushing Hunt to be an optimist when it comes to Celestina and their situation. But at the same time, Hunt isn't as like gung-ho about this optimism. He says, quote, I've got more than 200 years of history telling me to be wary. I can't deprogram myself. Hunt has been through the ringer. And like, that is the most fair comment. And I don't even think that it's like, I don't think you even have to have had 200 years of history to just use common sense of like, hey, the last person who was in power tried to kill everyone. This person was sent by the larger leaders who are still trying to kill everyone, who are so dangerous. That warrants being cautious.
Yeah.
Great if she's not like actively trying to kill them.
Right.
But don't think that she's not capable of it. Like, he has just so much PTSD, and Bryce just keeps pushing him to be okay with it. And then she'll push him to fight back. Like, there's a lot of things that she's trying to force him to be. I just feel like Bryce needs to be kind to his little traumatized heart.
Yeah, I think, you know, we're going to see throughout the chapter that she does recognize that he is still haunted. She does recognize that he's not in a good mental place. Nevertheless, she doesn't always seem to care.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just us in this moment, and maybe more will be revealed later. But right now, it definitely doesn't feel like she cares. And I want to point out the fact that the comment Hunt says of, I can't be deprogrammed, he's lived this way for 200 years, is so important for his journey.
Yeah.
Hunt is going to continue to struggle to turn off this programming, the need to protect Bryce, given his experience, given the fact that he couldn't protect Shahar, who was an archangel. She died.
Yeah.
Like, he has a lot of trauma to inform his choices and his protectiveness.
Yep.
Bryce wants him regularly to turn it off.
And it just doesn't work that way, babe. Like, Bryce, you got to give him...
He's been in slavery for 8 times her lifetime.
And his lifetime.
He's 237 or thereabout.
Yeah, he was free for...
He was a slave for about...
He didn't become enslaved until he was like 30-something.
About 37, 30... Yeah,
we'll
whatever.
32.
32, 37, whatever it is.
Yeah.
He was in slavery for at least 200 years. She's only 25.
Yeah.
Like, I think he's set in his ways. And if you don't like it, don't date an older man.
I mean, and it's like, I feel like it's fair to say, like, Hunt isn't not willing to try.
Right.
And that's the thing. I don't think he's, like, set in his ways. I think this is a man who needs therapy and, like, understanding and, like, can be coaxed to being on your side of things. But, like, he requires patience.
Yeah.
That Bryce is not willing to give.
I agree with you. I was over-exaggerating, and I recognize that.
Over-exaggerate?
What I mean to say ultimately is that Hunt's difficulty with change, it's not that he's not open to it, it's just difficult for him, is because he has 2 years of 200 years of trauma.
200
times 10 times 10. And it's going to be a pain point in Sky and Breath. It's going to be a pain point in Flame and Shadow. But Hunt is saying loud and clear right now, I cannot be deprogrammed.
And she is not hearing that at all.
She is not hearing him.
Yeah. This is the chapter I'm like, everything goes wrong.
Yeah, I agree. There is another comment that Bryce makes in this conversation that I think is worth noting. Quote, I think the world could easily believe you, Hunt, killed an archangel, but a whittle nobody, half human like me, that's the thing they don't want leaking out. I don't know why she had to Right, whittle instead of little.
Little whittle me, because she's trying to like make light of the situation again.
I understand, but keep the baby talk throughout the rest of the sentence, please.
Agreed. There's no consistency with her baby talk.
There's no consistency.
I'm a whittle, ittle, bittle baby.
Yeah.
Like, ittle, bittle. Easy, add that.
Now, I point out this quote for a few reasons. Bryce still views herself as a nobody, despite the power that she's acquired. I think that's important when you think about the fact that the title of princess is going to get thrown around quite a bit later in this chapter. We're also reminded that she's half human, and this happens right before Tharion shows up and talks about Sofie and Emile, who are half human.
Yeah.
I think that's an important point to a different argument I'm going to make later.
Okay.
And if you think about it, Bryce's point about the Asteri not wanting Bryce to reveal how she killed Micah is actually accurate. Like, they don't want people knowing that a half-human killed an archangel, and Bryce is going to use that to her advantage one day.
Yeah.
Just not anytime soon.
But, like, at the end of the day, it's just like a ticking time bomb of information.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
While this conversation is happening, we learn that the gates in Lunathian are being utilized for announcements.
Yep.
I'm going to not read the whole quote. But what's important here is that in addition to just regular tourist-related announcements, Rigelus himself blasts announcements too. Quote, "This is Rigelus, bright hand of the Asteri. We honor the fallen dead in beautiful Lunathian and thank those who fought for their service." I feel like this is so important because it really mocks and takes ownership of what Bryce did to save Lunathian and makes the Asteri seem like the good guys, even though they were the ones who were doing the bombing.
Yeah.
To me, it's giving power over narrative, which is a very post-war tactic.
Yeah. Yep.
We see it in the Cold War. We see it post-World War II.
Yep.
And to me, it was just the Asteri owning the power that Bryce refuses to grab.
Yep. An interesting moment that I want to point out is when Bryce and Hunt are eating their ice cream and he has his arm around her. Quote, "She ate more ice cream, but didn't move. So Hunt did the same. Careful to not drip into her hair." And I just thought that was like, it's such a random moment, but I thought it was a great moment because when you think about hair, we think about it being the source of power, think about Sanson and Delilah. And I feel like that's Hunt ensuring that Bryce's hair, her strength is protected.
I love this.
Oh, thank you.
I'm mad I didn't see that connection until I read your note.
Oh, I'm happy that you didn't.
I read that part and I was like, this feels important to have pointed out, but I don't understand why SJM's doing it, so I'm going to skip it.
That's why there's two of us.
That's right.
Just imagine if there was a third.
No.
Okay. Too much.
These episodes would be so long.
So long. You would never end. When Bryce gets home, we see Ithan, quote, "who was exactly where she'd left him that morning, on the couch, Syrinx sprawled across his lap." And I feel like there's a certain amount of judgment with that comment because it's noting that someone hasn't done anything with their day. And I'm not saying that Bryce expected him to start looking for jobs. You know, like he's clearly still trying to heal. But, you know, I was like willing to look past it. Be like, that's an interesting kind of judgmental note, but like whatever. But then later the next day, she takes Syrinx to work with her. And she claims it's because she missed Syrinx. She claimed it's because she was jealous even that, that Ithan got to spend the whole day with Syrinx. But, like, it still kind of feels like a punishment.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, has he been eating all day? Did he wash his dishes? I bet those dishes are still in the sink.
I bet he went into my bathroom, changed into a wolf, and knocked all my shit over.
Yeah, Bryce, you're in for a real treat soon.
I know. Did he even put her stuff back?
Probably not.
I don't think so either. Anyway, when Tharion walks in and Ithan, like, straightens, she even tells Ithan to, quote, "Relax," she said, and didn't spare the wolf another glance as Hunt and Tharion aimed for the couch. Like, that is some pretty dismissive language. And I don't know where this, like, all of a sudden she's revved up and aggressive. Like, I think she kind of comes in ready for a fight. When I feel like the last scene, we just kind of had a moment of peace. You know, like she's eating the ice cream, she's in Hunt's arms. I mean, who knows what's happening at this point? Like, that other stuff was from Hunt's point of view. How much of it is Bryce feeling guilty? How much of it is, I don't know, Bryce feeling anxious that she feels trapped, you know, without even knowing that she feels trapped by the Asteri? So she's coming in real hot and fast.
I do want to point out what we don't talk about in this episode. It's a little bit in the breadcrumbs, but what we skipped over is the fact that while they're on the river, they see a Reaper.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yeah.
And Bryce does react very negatively to the Reaper.
Yeah, that's fair.
So I think she's a little shaken.
Okay, I forgot about that part. Good point.
And she doesn't save it for just Ithan, though she does treat Ithan like a dog, which he is a canine.
He is, yeah.
And he is with Syrinx, who is also a canine. Like, if I walked in and saw Rowan, I would be like, yeah, chill the fuck out, dude.
Yeah, Rowan.
I do miss Rowan. Bryce and Hunt, despite connecting on the river, still have some tension about petty things. And I think, again, it's partially because of the Reaper sighting.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Bryce gets really annoyed when Hunt goes towards the couch and Tharion's following him. And she's like, fuck no, I'm not cleaning that couch. You don't sit there. Tharion mocks Bryce and Hunt by saying, quote, domestic bliss, I see. Tharion just wants to stir the pot.
Yeah.
Because he wants Bryce to like him. B, this is normal shit. Like, get over yourself, Tharion.
Yeah. And it's also like, this is the second person she's had to say, not the white couch.
In less than 24 hours.
Yeah. Like, someone leave that white couch alone.
Yeah, please.
Someone get her a different couch.
Yeah.
Really.
Danika, poor choices were made.
I am so sorry if any listener has a white couch, but like, the poorest choice you can make.
I had a white couch, and I got rid of it.
Yeah. And even that white couch wasn't like a pristine white couch. It had like shades of grayish in there. And
I always kept a cover on it because it was white.
Exactly.
So why did I buy a white couch? I don't know. Bryce introduces Ithan to Tharion briefly, and this is the first time Tharion gets called Captain Whatever. And although Hunt is joking about Ithan dealing Tharion's ego a blow, it's not untrue. Like, Tharion is going to dwell on that name in Flame and Shadow. And, it is fitting given Tharion was doubting himself anyway, just a chapter ago.
Yeah, Tharion has emotions, blah, blah, poor him.
Oh, I wasn't pitying him.
No, I know you weren't. One soul out there is. This is me showing that I'm capable of it. We see Tharion being flirty with Bryce again, and each time it's very funny. Like, I do love their interactions. But now that we know more about it, we can look into these flirty moments. We can tell that Tharion uses his charm as a weapon. He's using to make Bryce even more comfortable in order to get information out. I don't doubt that he's having fun with Bryce, but now we know that there's another level of manipulation behind it. He's trying to get something from her. And it's using Bryce's own weapon against her. No one does it better, this like sexy, flirty, charming, than Bryce to get what they want. Tharion blows Bryce a kiss when he sees her neon pink lace bra, and he tells her that it's hot. And he keeps building up these innuendos, right? At one point, Tharion even tells Bryce, quote, glamorous as my life might seem, legs, there's a lot of grunt work behind the scenes, he winked, though not the sort of grunting I'd like to do with you, of course. Don't try to distract me with flirting, Bryce said. Power is sex and a distraction, but only when wielded using by the right person, aka Bryce. Reading this section, having been aware from the chapter before of like, wow, Tharion really doesn't view himself as much other than his charm, knowing that he's coming in to get info on Sofie and Danika, and then knowing that he's using the one weapon he feels confident in, and that's his charm, and Bryce matches him blow for blow and does not get charmed by him.
Yep. I mean, talk about a blow to the ego for him.
Oh, absolutely. And then I just want to note, Hunt is not threatened by this. And I wonder if it's because he knows Tharion and that this is him trying to manipulate, or maybe he knows that he's betrothed to the princess, but there's just still something about Tharion that Hunt is so unbothered by.
Yeah, I think I talk about it later, but I might as well talk about it now. I think this may come down to, this is an assumption on my part, but I think it may come down to just inherent prejudices within the Vanir hierarchy, right? Malakim, or angels, are at the highest end of the, not food chain, but the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
And, later you're going to talk about Flynn.
Who's Fae,
and angels and Fae have tension.
Yeah.
So the mayor must be at the bottom because...
Whether they're at the bottom, but they're not an enemy the way that the Fae are to the angels.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I just don't think...
That's fair.
Hunt views Tharion as much of anything.
That's fair.
There is a point, unbeknownst to Hunt, that Bryce thinks of Tharion, quote, "The mare was as attractive as she remembered, perhaps more so, now that he was slightly disheveled and muddy." So I think this is a nice reminder. Bryce likes her men normal and a little dirty.
Yeah.
And why I point this out is because earlier this chapter, Bryce was asking about Hunt's ability to fix machines, asking if his lightning, what made it an affinity that he had. And we didn't get to see Bryce's point of view during that conversation. My guess is she was thinking like, that's hot.
Yeah.
Until Hunt revealed his PTSD.
That's hot.
Sorry. That's how her inner voice sounds.
That's hot. I like it. Put on your reverse baseball cap. It's hot.
Sounds like an old aunt, like being like, yeah, I can still get it.
It's hot.
So I guarantee Bryce would eat Hunt alive if he showed up looking like a grease monkey after fixing her scooter.
Absolutely destroyed. I feel like Hunt, if he wanted Bryce to break, he just needed to come up with like little greasy in his backward baseball cap.
No shirt.
Oh.
Grease on his face.
Oh my God. She'd be done. I'd be done.
Wiping his hands on a towel. Yeah, I can see it.
At one point, Hunt warns Tharion to not lie to Bryce. Quote, "A thrill shot through Bryce at it. Not only the power, but knowing he had her back." And again, I referenced this a little bit earlier where Bryce didn't necessarily fight, where Bryce like kind of fought Hunt's battle, even though Hunt was into it. And right now it's Hunt is the one who's letting Bryce do her thing. Now, I also feel like there's an extra interesting layer to it where a thrill shot through Bryce at it. Like, I think that's more of like her power registering his power. Any of these little shot moments.
I completely agree with you because on the next page, Hunt goes to Bryce's side and, quote, "His power shimmered up her body, electrifying her very blood at his nearness," which on one hand is a breadcrumb for her power and his power interacting. It is also just hot. It makes me feel like she just gets a thrill every time he's close.
Yeah.
But I think more importantly, what it's showing is the nuance between what Bryce accepts and doesn't accept from Hunt. And that is she wants to be backed up by him.
Yeah.
Not protected by him.
Yeah. Yeah. It's compliance or nothing.
Like, you're on my side or you're not.
Yeah. So to double down on this idea that Bryce loves that he backs her up, Tharion, the little shit, that's my actual note, takes a, quote, blatant step towards Bryce. And Bryce held her ground. She was surprised and delighted that Hunt let her fight this battle without interfering. Another moment where Bryce is getting off of him being there for her, but not defending her. And part of her issue with Hunt later is that she doesn't want him to be an alpha hole and that he's, with Cormac and he's overprotective. But, I get that Bryce wants to handle something and have power over something because, keep in mind, Bryce still doesn't really have power.
Yeah.
She's very shiny.
She is very shiny.
She's very bright, but there's not a real power to her at this point. So, I think she's grappling at straws too, trying to have some kind of power anywhere. The difference though, as we'll see later, is that Hunt is there watching Bryce. He has her back versus later on when we discovered that she was with Cormac, not with Cormac, but Cormac went to go see her and Hunt gets defensive. We'll get into that more later, but I like that there's a clear mirroring moment between how Bryce feels and how Hunt feels. All within the same chapter because this chapter will never end.
Chapter never ends. So during this conversation, there is once again a moment where Bryce uses her starlight and she can control it. What happened right before she controls her starlight? Hunt's power electrifies her blood. Is this a breadcrumb?
Yes.
Is this showing that Bryce's control over her starlight is directly tied to Hunt powering her?
Yes.
It's less blatantly obvious previously when she controlled her power in front of Pollux. There was a mention of Hunt's power, his wings having lightning. It doesn't mention her feeling electrified by it.
Yeah.
But I'm going to guess there was a little bit of energy transfer then.
Oh, such good catch. She's doing this on purpose.
She's doing it on purpose.
SJM.
Thank you for listening to part 1 of this week's episode of Book Talk for Book Talk with Jac and Amy. Stick around for part 2, which airs on Thursday.
We encourage you to rate and subscribe to our show on your preferred podcast listening platform. We would love to hear your thoughts based on today's conversation. You can submit your comments to our form at booktalkforbooktalk.com for a chance to have your feedback discussed during a future mini episode or on a Patreon exclusive episode.
If you are enjoying the podcast, please visit our website, booktalkforbooktalk.com, to view our latest merch and learn about supporting the show through Patreon or Venmo. Bye! It'll take us an hour to get through this.
I'm dreading this section, so...
We can do it.
We can do it.
We can do it. No long discussions.
No, don't you dare have an interesting thought.
Okay.
Same.
Fall has officially started here in Los Angeles, and that means we finally get to do fall activities.
I have been counting down the days for when I can go to pumpkin patches, maybe even hit up an apple orchard, and I get to do all of it looking super cute in my Quince boyfriend sweater.
This weather is perfect for my dark academia vibes, and I'm so excited to bust out my washable silk blouse because you know I'm going to be taking pictures.
Quince is known for their Mongolian cashmere sweaters from $50. And that's not all. Quince has so many other amazing things on their website.
All of those items are priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands.
That includes leather jackets, cotton cardigans, soft denim. Like, my entire fall wardrobe is genuinely turning into Quince wardrobe.
By partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the cost of the middleman, we get savings as the customer.
One of my favorite parts about Quince is the fact that they only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing practices. And they still manage to get premium fabrics and finishes for that, luxury feeling for every item that they have.
Get cozy in Quince's high-quality wardrobe essentials. Go to quince.com/booktalk for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. That's Quince, QUINCE.com/booktalk, BOOKTALK, to get free shipping and 365-day returns. That's quince.com/booktalk.